Okay, I'd like to talk to you about how to true up a piece of stock. We're going to go through these 6 steps with the machines which are around us right here. I'm making a bowl like this one. The bottom is nice, I haven't finished the sides yet. But if you're going to make a bowl like this, you need to get a piece of wood which is straight and square, because if you don't start with a piece of wood which is of uniform thickness and is perfectly straight, you'll never be able to cut these compound angles for the little pieces that are going to be used to make the bowl. I'll be using this jig with these clamps to hold our piece of wood as we cut the little blocks. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I just want to talk about how to true up a piece of stock. So the first thing I have to do is find a piece of wood which I can use for this purpose. And I picked a board here which is really crooked. I can see one end's got some cracks on it. I want to cut it to the right size so I can use it to make those little blocks. So I'm going to cut it. And I'll use this end, and we'll start by planing one surface true and flat, just like step number 1 on our list. Now, there's a vacuum system in the shop, but I'm not turning it on because it makes a lot of noise. I want you to be able to hear what I'm saying. So I'm going to plane one surface. First of all, I've got to make sure that I put the concave side down. If there is a concave side, yes. I have the concave side down, and it's going to take a few passes to get rid of that curve. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to be cutting off that end because there's little cracks down there anyway. So we've completed step number 1. We planed one surface true and flat. The next step is to get one edge square with the first surface. So I'm checking, I'm going to put a concave side down. And this, it's faintly bowed this way. So I'm going to plane one edge, holding it against the fence. By the way, I know that the fence is perpendicular to the table. I've set it already. The fact is, it hardly ever moves in my shop. So now we have one edge that's straight and square with the first surface. So we're ready to take this piece of wood and make sure that it's the same thickness everywhere. We're going to do that over on the thickness planer. The lines on the thickness planer are above the piece of wood, so we have to have a straight, flat surface down so that it feeds in there nicely. I'm just setting it so that it barely goes in. Then I'll give it a turn. You can see it's just taking a little bit off both ends, but soon it'll be straight. Off. We've completed the first 3 steps. Our piece of wood is of uniform thickness, and of course we have this straight square edge. The last thing we have to do is make sure that our piece of wood is the same width from one end to the other. So we're going to go over to the table saw. I'll put the good straight edge against the fence, and I'll rip off this side. Well, I need my push stick. Here it is. Your finger should always be at least 4 inches away from the blade. I guess my finger would be 4 inches away, but I like to use the push stick almost all of the time. I walk around the saw. I don't reach around the blade. So there's our piece of wood, 4 square corners. And it's almost ready, but there's one more thing. Beginners often make a mistake. They get a little ahead of themselves. They think, oh, I need a piece that's 20 inches long, so they measure it and they cut it off. But they forget that maybe this end isn't square. We just cut it over there a few minutes ago. It probably is not square. So step number 5 says square and cut one end, then measure it and cut it to the length that you want. So we'll go over to the miter saw and cut one end off. Okay, at this stage, we could measure the length and cut it off. Now, in this case, I'm making the bowl, and I'm going to be putting this piece of wood into that jig, so I don't really care about this end. I know that I'm not going to use the piece at this end where these little cracks are, so we've just finished truing up a piece of stock. I hope you can use this little bit of information. Thank you.